Good evening, everyone. So, the session is going to start in a few minutes. Maybe we can just allow a few more people to join the session. I can see the trainer is already here. So, let's just give them like 5 minutes or 10 so that we can start the session. I appreciate all of you for joining the session. We're going to look at adaptive management and implementation. So let's just wait for a few more people to join so that we can start. All right. Good evening once again, and thank you so much for everyone who is able to join this session at this time. So, my name is Diana Doreen, and I'll be moderating this session for today. Maybe we can just invite the speaker to lead us through the recap of what happened in the last meeting as we wait for other other people to join, and then he'll lead us through today's session. So welcome.
Thanks, Diana, and thanks once again for everyone for attending. Today we'll be finalizing scope management, and then also introducing the concept of adaptive implementation. So for the starters, we'll start with any participant who can give us a recall on what we have gone through since the introduction of project management concept up to where we last attended, which is the scope management. Any volunteer, please feel free to unmute and we go and speak.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. The last session, I think we were on introduction to project schedule management, whereby we looked at the key components of project schedule. Things like Gantt charts, critical path method, and path. Though it was just mentioning, but we did not look into it in depth. Project planning, scheduling techniques, and then we looked at the key features like task lists, timelines, dependencies, milestones, progress, tracking, resource allocation, and then we looked at the scheduling techniques, of which I've already mentioned up there. We looked at the benefits, like of the Gantt chart, the benefits for CPM, how it works, how the CPM works, and so forth. I also looked at, we did not look into the part we're in depth also. So it was just about mentioning and highlighting the advantages of those techniques. So we were now to go and look into the analysis or in-depth of critical path methods and PRT. Yeah, I think that's what I can recall for now. Maybe we can now get into depth as we progress on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Robert Juma, for that elaborative recap. Maybe to supplement on what you said, first, Doctor introduced the concept of project planning and management, and he introduced project management as the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet the project requirements. He also introduced the project management as a temporary endeavor with specific goals, constraints, and deliverables. I also talked about the project management process, which included initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling, and then lastly, the closeout of the project phase. Next, we looked at the project integration, which involves coordinating and integrating all aspects of a project to ensure its successful completion. And this included processes such as project charter development, project planning, project execution, project monitoring and controlling, and project closure or project phase closure. And we say that integration management ensures that project activities are aligned with the project objectives, and that changes are properly managed throughout the project. Next, we handled scope management, which involved defining, controlling, and managing what is included or excluded in the project. And we looked at processes such as collecting requirements, defining the project scope, creating a work breakdown structure, and managing changes to this project scope throughout the project life cycle. And we say that effective scope management helps prevent scope creep and ensures that the project stays focused on delivering the intended outcomes. Then we looked at schedule management, which involves developing, maintaining, and controlling the project schedule to ensure timely completion of project activities. And includes processes such as defining activities, sequencing activities, estimating activity duration, and developing the project schedule and controlling the schedule changes. Schedule management, we talked about the benefits, which include, among others, managing project managers allocating resources effectively, identifying critical path activities, and monitoring progress to keep the project on track. So basically, that is what we have been looking at. So for today, we'll look at, we'll go in depth and look at the critical path method. And then the assignment that individuals will undertake would be the task is to read about the path method and see how it also links with the other scheduling techniques. So we defined a project management schedule technique as a project management technique used to identify the sequence of tasks that determine the shortest duration required to complete a project. And we talked about the benefits. So looking at the critical path method, basically a simple technique for analyzing and planning and scheduling large and complex projects. It provides a means of determining which jobs or activities of the many that comprise a project are critical in their effect on the total project time. It also helps us to determine how best to schedule all jobs in the project to meet a target date at a minimum cost. So yeah, still on the critical path, it's a technique really where you identify tasks that are necessary for the project completion and determining scheduling flexibilities. Critical path in project management is the longest sequence of activities that must be finished on time for the entire project to be completed. Meaning that the critical path is the end duration of a project, how long the project will take. And any delays in the critical tasks will always delay the rest of the project. And that also impacts on the time of the project and also the resources that are used for the project. So some of the key concepts we have for us to, before we dig deep into this critical path method, we have to understand is we have earliest start, we have duration, we have earliest finish, we have a forward pass, we have a latest start, latest finish, backward pass, and slack or float. So what is earliest start? Earliest start time for an activity in a project schedule is the earliest point in time when the activity can begin based on its dependencies and the project network logic. Those we are going to see and look at the keywords there that are dependencies and network logic we are going to look at. It is determined by the earliest finish time of all preceding activities in the project. And we shall see what are the preceding activities in a project still. Next, we have the duration, which is the period of the project. we have a latest start, which is the start time for an activity latest start time for an activity in a project schedule in the latest point in time when the activity must start to avoid delaying the project's completion dates. So meaning that the latest start means that that is a critical time in which an activity should happen. And if it doesn't happen within that time, then there will be delays in completion of the project. And this we're going to see how it is determined by considering the project's end date, the activity duration, and the dependencies within the project network. Still, we have the project network coming up, and we'll be looking at that. Earliest finish is the earliest finish time for an activity in a project schedule, and is the earliest point in time when the activity can be completed. Considering its duration and the easiest earliest starter time based on dependencies and project network logic. So still the word project network logic comes up. Take note of that, and we are going to look at that. But the earliest finish is the earliest point in time when the activity can be completed. We have our latest start, latest finish, which is the time for an activity, the latest finish time for an activity in a project schedule, which is still the latest point in time when the activity must be finished to avoid delaying the project's completion date or the project duration. And this considers the project's end date and the activity duration and the dependencies within the project network. So still we have the word dependencies coming up and our project network coming up. So we have to also look at that. Then we have forward pass, and that we are going to look at still in detail. And then also we shall look at the backward pass, and then slack, as we had defined it before, as the amount of time that a task can be delayed without delaying the time that the project's overall completion time. And we are going to look at it in detail and also see how to calculate that. So how do we develop, how do we find a critical path? There are steps, and the first step is using a work breakdown structure to list all the project activities or tasks required to produce the deliverables. So remember we said in the work breakdown structure is disaggregating project activities up to individual level, and we handled this under the scope management, a presentation, and so it's coming back. So that is why it is critical for us to always recap and see where we are at. So basically, a work breakdown structure will look like that. You have a project, and you have different phases. At inception, you have different activities or tasks that you undertake, and also during planning, you have different tasks or activities, and these tasks are properly stipulated and defined within the work breakdown structure. So once you have your activities within the work breakdown structure, then you list all the project activities that are required to produce the deliverables, and then as a first step in developing the critical path method. or the critical path, or finding the critical path of the project. So we have an example of work breakdown structure for a new interactive blog post that is to be put out there by a community breakthrough support mission, and also Basket One Consulting and Advisory Services Limited. So within the work breakdown structure, we have for this new interactive blog poster, we have different tasks. So what we have is we have these tasks having a task ID to identify the task. So our task A is creating an outline of what we want to put out there in our blog, and the duration, which is also the days, a number of days that we plan on having. So we list all the activities, and then we look at the dependencies, which is also the next step in defining, finding out the critical path. So the dependencies, when you look at these activities, I don't know if anyone can identify any activity that depends on the other before the next activity is undertaken. Anyone can unmute and speak to the mic while they're looking at this. Any volunteer? Any volunteer to tell us which activity would depend on the other? For example, you have
like
yes.
C will depend on B.
Yes.
If there is no B, then you cannot review what is not existing.
Sure.
So, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we would indicate our dependencies based on the task. Of course, activity one has no dependency because it is the first activity which is creating the outline. Then writing the draft will depend on if the outline is created or what you want to write about. And then reviewing and editing would depend on if the draft is written. Then designing the poster visual would can depend on either writing the draft or reviewing and editing. Then adding animations would depend still on the design for the visual, and of course uploading this poster would depend on all the previous activities. So the next step is identify the dependencies based on your work breakdown structure. You determine the tasks that are dependent on one another. And like I said, designing of the poster visual can depend on writing a draft of how the post will look like, and also it can also depend on reviewing and editing. And animation will depend on the design. And upload can also depend on you having reviewed and edited the content. You can review and edit and without having a proper design. But you can also design and post that marketing blog that you want to have posted online. And you can also add animation and then upload. So those are dependencies. So once we've known the dependencies, then we move on to creating a network diagram. And for our project, our network diagram would look like this. where we have activity 1, which is the outline, then drafting, and then we have all the other activities until the end. So this would be our network diagram. It's a visual representation of the flow of activities in the critical path. So we had the word forward pass, and this is used to calculate earliest start and earliest finish dates by using a previously specified start date. And we say the earliest start is a highest earliest finish value from the immediate predecessor. That is if we have any activity before. Whereas earliest finish is the earliest start plus the duration, and we are going to see that. The calculation starts with 0 at the earliest start of the first activity and proceeds through the schedule. So we are going to calculate earliest start and earliest finish of the project. And determining earliest start and earliest finish dates allows for early allocation of resources as one of the benefits. In that way, the project manager knows exactly what time, what resources are to be released for us to be able to achieve the project deliverables. So from our task, from our example we are using, which is developing an interactive blog, our forward pass would look at this. We'll look at the tasks, and here we're using the task IDs. We've taken out the names, the duration of each task, and we are saying that the earliest start for the first activity is always 0, and the latest start will be the duration of the project. Remember, we say the latest start is a latest point in time for which an activity should have happened. So our latest start, for example, for activity 1, which has a duration of 1 day, would be starting at the end of the day. So the next activity would be earliest start would be the latest start of activity A, and latest start of activity A is 1, as you can see, and the latest earliest start would be 1, and the latest start would be the duration of activity B plus its earliest start, which is 6. And it still goes on with the earliest start for activity C being latest start of activity B, which is 6, and the latest start of activity C would be the duration of activity C plus the latest its earliest start, which is 6, and that will give us 8. So at the end of it all, we see that our activity for generating this blog poster would take around 15 days. So that would be the duration of our project, which is 15 days. So once we've estimated the task duration using the forward pass, we also move forward and look at the backward pass. And this is used to calculate the latest start and latest finish. And latest start is a life latest finish of a project of an activity. Duration whereas latest start finish is the lowest latest start value from the immediate successor of in terms of the activities. The calculation starts with the last schedule activity and proceeds backwards through the entire project. Someone is unmuted. Please mute. So how do we calculate our backward pass, which is our step 5 in the critical path? Finding the critical path, we estimate the task duration backwards. And here we start with activity F, which has its latest start being 15. And here we are looking at the latest finish 15 days and earliest finish being 14 days, which is latest finish minus the duration. So we are going back. We are going backwards. We are contradicting while calculating the latest finish. We are adding, and while we are actually while we are calculating the earliest finish, we are adding, and while we are calculating the earliest finish, we are subtracting. So once we've known that the last activity would happen, its latest finish date would be 15 days, and its earliest finish would be 14 days. Then we use the earliest finish to determine the successor latest finish data for activity E, which is now 14 days. And for its earliest finish would be within 12 days, meaning that we are subtracting 14 from the duration of 2 days, and we'll be having 12. So we proceed to do that until we arrive to our first task, which is activity 1, and its earliest finish is 0, because that would be the latest start, and its earliest finish, we're saying the duration is 1 day, so you wouldn't finish it before 1 day. So for us to find the critical path, it's also key for us to understand slack and float. And when we talk about slack and float, here we are refers to the amount of flexibility of a given task. Slack or float, it indicates how much the task can be delayed without impacting subsequent tasks or the project in date. Finding the float is useful in gauging how much flexibility the project has, meaning that you are able to find to identify the critical activities. And once you identify the critical activities and their start times and finish times, then you are able to know if you are still have some time within the project. So critical tasks have a 0 float, which means that their dates are set and they should happen within that or before that data. Tasks with a positive float numbers belong in the non-critical path, meaning that tasks that have a critical path that is more than 0 are non-critical. And this informs the project manager on what activities to really focus on, because they are critical, and in case of any delays within the, undertaking those activities, then the project will go off schedule. However, those that are non-critical, they may be delayed without affecting the project completion date. If you are short on time or resources, non-critical tasks may be skipped. So basically, as you see that this critical path is really really provides good benefits to the project manager if they are using it. So how do we calculate float? We can calculate float into different ways. We can have latest finish minus latest start, and we'll get the float or slack. And then we can also calculate it using the earliest finish minus earliest start. And for our example here of the blog, we can see that all the float is 0. And this indicates that the critical path, all the activities are critical for this project. So slack is the amount. Remember, it's the amount of time an activity can be delayed without delaying the project's overall completion dates. So meaning that all these activities are within our critical path, within our network diagram, are critical for us to undertake, such that we are able to post our blog on time, which is 15 days. So with the float that is 0, it implies that any delays in any activity will directly impact the subsequent activity and the project's completion date. And in such a scenario, the critical path consists of only a 0, as you can see. And any delay in the critical path activity will directly delay the project completion, which is for our case posting. So what are some of the risks that happen when you if you have a 0 critical path? 0 float. With a 0 float, this indicates that the project is highly susceptible to delays. And any unexpected issue or delays in any activity along the critical path can cause the project to be delivered late. So as a project manager, you need to closely monitor the critical path and actively manage resources and tasks to ensure that activities are completed on time. So you may also need to allocate additional resources or adjust task priorities to prevent any delays, meaning that prioritizing tasks here is key. If you are to have the list of the content that you're going to have within the blog, then that should happen within day 1, and such that you are able to also start writing the draft and then also move forward until you post. And this means that since all the float is 0, there's no flexibility in this schedule. This schedule must be followed to the dot. And as a project manager, you should have a contingency plan in place to address any unforeseen events or delays that may occur during the project execution. So in summary, when the float is 0 for all project activities, it signals a tight and rigid schedule where any delays can directly impact the project's completion date, requiring careful monitoring and proactive management for you to ensure successful project delivery. So we've talked about this, how to calculate float, but then there are 2 concepts or terminologies that I thought are critical for us to look at, and that is total float and also free float. So total float is the amount of time that an activity can be delayed from the early start date without delaying the project finish date or violating a schedule constraint. And we are saying that total float is latest start minus earliest start, or latest finish minus earliest finish. Then free float is how long an activity can be delayed without impacting the following activity. And we said free float is when you have a positive or greater than 0 float calculation. And there can only be free float when 2 or more activities share a common successor. On a network diagram, this is where activities converge. And for this, we are saying that free float can only happen, for example, for activity F or activity C or activity E here. Okay, so in conclusion, critical path can be a useful asset in project management, particularly for planning tasks and managing resources. And as you have seen that once you are able to identify the start time of an activity and the end time of an activity, then you are able to determine what resources are needed, and also be able to allocate those resources to such that those activities can be undertaken for the project to be able to achieve its deliverable. Then with the help of project planning tools, you'll be able to create a schedule and track projects with ease. And for this, I want us to look at one of the project scheduling tools out there that can be used. And for this case, we are going to look at Teams. And with Teams, you have a calendar. And with this calendar, you are able to include all your tasks. And here you can always schedule your activities. For example, Monday, you can see that on Monday, you have a weekly update meeting. Then you attend a general meeting. And you can also schedule an activity. For example, if it is going to start at 2, and indicate, you add the activity title, then you add all those that will be needed, all the resources, and then also comments. So this way you can really schedule your activities and understand how have these activities. You can also block off some free time and say, no, this is my time to conduct this specific activity. And I won't need any people to come in and support. And there are various softwares to do this. While some institutions have the monies to spend on such softwares, others don't, and so you just have to mark on your calendar that this date I'll be conducting this activity, this is critical, and or I'll be having this meeting and the like. So we'll move on to the different project management methods. And yes.
Before you continue, I just wanted to ask.
Yes.
You've been talking about the software of doing this, but
sorry,
you say Yes, you've said that there's a software that can do this,
Yes, the
but
scheduling.
it is expensive.
Mm,
So I was asking if we have an app that can help,
an app.
an app that we can use on phone or on a laptop that can also help one to 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 make this a critical path.
Yes, we have a Google Calendar. Uh, Google Calendar. Uh, it's also it's free of charge. Um, and it looks like this. But this with this you have to have with this you have to have a Gmail account, and you can always schedule your activities. So it shows you still the different days, and you can always schedule your different activities. Uh, that one is for the people using Windows, and I think the people using Linux operating systems. Yes, so there is an opportunity for everyone to always engage with these various technologies and platforms, and be able to schedule.
As well, Microsoft Project does this.
Yes, even Microsoft Project does that. We have even other virtual meeting platforms like Zoom. They do that, and they also even provide reminders. But if you don't have the monies, you can always use Google Calendars. I hope that is clear, Mr. Juma.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the project management methods, we have waterproof. And here we are looking at our scope and implementing exactly what is in the scope up to the project closeout. We have the second method being incremental. And with this, we are enlarging our scope, we are adding elements to our scope, and we are also changing the timelines. And at the end of it all, we are able to close out our project. Then we have the iterative, where we are making changes to the project scope and schedule, and implementing and making changes to the project scope and schedule, and implementing until we reach the closeout phase of the project. Meaning that for incremental, remember in our work breakdown structure development, we said that we have the phase based, and with incremental, we are having a work breakdown structure that is looking at different phases, and we are implementing, and until you reach the project closeout. Then we have the agile implementation methodology, and here basically we are combining both incremental and iterative. We are implementing both of these, and we are having a project implement until we close out the project. So it is iterative and flexible, and emphasizes collaboration, adaptability, and looking at the client or customer satisfaction. So key characteristics is
My question.
iterative. Yes,
My question.
yes.
At what point do you do you start iterating a project? At what point, or after considering what is when you can iterate?
Uh, for example, I'll give an example. Say, for example, if you are constructing a house, that project may take on a waterproof where you have your scoop and you have basically your architectural plan, and you have all the resources, and you say, no, let's let the contractor work on that and have it done, and they hand you your end product. Then when you're incremental, when you're using the incremental method for that project of building a house, you'll find that you have the resources to start up the foundation. So they do the excavation, and you lay your foundation. They look for monies. Then you start building up the walls. Then you look for the monies, and you increment and say, now let's work on the roof. You look for the monies, and you put the windows and doors. So that one is increment until the end product, which is a complete house. Now, in our example of a house, how the iterative would come in. You've put you put the doors, but now you have the roof, but you don't have money for the windows. But then you're tired of renting. So what you do is you tell your wife, let's go into our house. So you get iron sheets and put in the windows, and you enter your house and you start living in your house. Then when you get the monies, you put the windows. So you're iterating, you're living within the house, and you're still working on the house. And so that way, then you what? So basically, with iterative, you have small iterations or increments, typically lasting for some time, and every level or every stage you look or you reach, or every phase of your work breakdown structure, it's like you have a product. So for this, this is why I said that we're having a project schedule management, and also introducing the concept of adaptive management. So, and what to note here is that adaptive management is a concept that we want to introduce because we've looked at the scope, and we've looked at the scheduling. Next, we are going to be looking at cost management. And remember, in our processes, in the process groups that Doctor introduced, I said that there is the inception, there is a planning, there is a monitoring and controlling, and there is also change management, and lastly, the closeout. Yes, we shall be looking at change management later on. And as you know that scope management and schedule management are closely intertwined with change management. Remember, when we're looking at the integration, project integration management, the collaborative efforts that are brought all that we bring all together for us to be able to achieve the project deliverables. We said that while managing change, most of the change as a project manager, you'll be managing changes in scope, you'll be managing changes in the schedule, you'll be managing changes in the costs. And for you to manage these changes, it means you are monitoring what is happening within your project. So schedule management and adaptive management are closely related concepts. Particularly in dynamic and complex projects. So adaptive management is an intentional approach to making decisions and adjustments in response to new information and changes in context. While we are looking at scope management, while we are looking at schedule management, while we are going to look at cost management, it all involves monitoring. I know we'll have a deeper discussion on monitoring and controlling of the project, but I felt it was really key for us to look at, to introduce this concept of adaptive management, so that we are able to plan and control for the project schedules and the scope. And also have that mindset and approach necessary to navigate uncertainty. Even though, yes, we shall be looking at risk management later on, but we need people to embrace changes and also understand how those changes affect the optimal performance of the project, and also get to appreciate the dynamic environment in which the projects operate. So adaptive management integrates adaptive learning into the project management process. Directly straight from inception, planning, executing the project, monitoring and controlling and managing changes in the project, and also project closeout. So what happens is we are looking at the causal link monitoring and adaptive management. We are conducting lessons learned meetings and making changes, agreeing. We are looking at our theories of change. That is, if it is in the development world. If it is in the business sector, then you are looking at your business plan, and you are looking at the different strategies, how they are performing, and you are also conducting after action reviews or meetings to be able to manage change based on the information that you have. So, like I said, all projects require planning. In planning a project or intervention or program, we make guesses about how things will work. In our work breakdown structure, we indicate, oh, this activity will be conducted, that these are the resources that we require, this is the time frame that we need. And usually they rely on knowledge and data from past experiences and knowledge of the context where you are planning to work. Like I said, in most institutions, you'll find that a project charter doesn't really exist, but we do have a project proposal that we work with, and then you'll find that basically the work plan is really what drives what acts as the project management plan. And you find that people are guessing and they're saying, no, this will work. And in our work plan, this is the timeline that we have. And if the work plan is costed, then or the Gantt chart is posted, then you look at it and say, oh, yes, these are the costs, what are the actual costs that we are going to incur. But in reality, the context changes. You find that COVID has come in and you need to make changes. You find that the fuel prices have hiked and they're increasing the operational costs of the project. So that way, as a project manager, you need to be adaptive in how you manage your project. So we are saying that despite this careful planning, things often do not go as we planned. Sometimes we make incorrect assumptions about our theories of change or about our business plans. You assume the business is going to break even within a period of say 7 months, and then probably some issues happen and the marketing isn't done right, and you're not targeting the right people. Or in the theory of change, the assumptions you've made and the interventions that you've come up with are not targeting or are not what the beneficiaries need. So you have to change and provide what the end user or the client or the beneficiary needs. I've talked about the unexpected situations, and COVID taught us very many lessons. And this also increased the rationale for being adaptive as a manager, project manager. And then the changing context, the context of the project changes. Sometimes, like I said, you make assumptions, and at the end of it all, when you go out there and you start conducting your activities, you realize the beneficiaries are not saying that's not what they need. Sometimes new knowledge comes up on how to best do something. I know people keep up, institutions write knowledge management products and put them out there. So you may find that there's a knowledge management product that's in line with what you're implementing, and it has some innovation in it, and that's what you need to do. Then that impacts your scope, it impacts your schedule and costs. So that also benefits the project manager if they are adaptive. So without adaptive management, and if you're looking at things in a traditional manner, then there's something that is lacking that you don't know. You will be like this ostrich here with the head in there, and you're wondering what is really happening. So adaptive management helps us really understand what is happening. We have our intervention activity. And there's something that we don't know, that is, what are the project people doing to achieve the outcome at intervention level, or to achieve the output that we are seeing, because you're looking at data. So adaptive management helps us to uncover this black box of implementation. What is being done differently? And you are able to integrate it in your scope, and you are able to integrate it into your schedules. You are able to allocate our resources to that. And at the end of it all, you understand how the outcome or output really happened. So basically, this is what adaptive management does. And I've talked about this. So I borrowed something from Adolescence 365 to help us understand how adaptive management works and adaptive implementation works. And it involves collecting data. Yes, while you are a project manager monitoring and controlling, you're looking at your schedule and saying, oh, the activities are going on well. You need to move further and ask yourself questions. Okay, we're able to achieve this. See, there's exceptional performance, so you're achieving exceptional profits. What are we doing that is bringing in these exceptional profits? What processes, what did we do differently? For example, you may be monitoring your competitors if you're in the private sector, and seeing what they are doing. You're seeing what they are doing and what you're doing, and you're seeing better results. Then you should learn from that process and be able to integrate that into your schedules as some of the best practices that you should undertake. And this also impacts our work breakdown structure. Remember, we talked about that in the scope management. So we ask, how do we optimize our intervention, or how do we scale it up in case the intervention isn't working well? So you have to understand what you need. You have to understand what success looks like at your end. Then you have to work collaboratively. Remember, we said that integration management is all about collaborating, managing teams to collaboratively bring out the desired deliverables. Then you move on to planning and collecting the information. This information can be qualitative or quantitative. And sometimes quantitative data doesn't really tell us what is happening beneath there. So the project manager may be monitoring and looking at the schedule and saying, oh, we're able to achieve this on time, and oh, the costs are okay. Then you need to understand the nuisances that cause that. And then you opt for the qualitative data to understand whether or how and why. And basically to highlight to members here that qualitative data usually answers the why, the how, and the so what questions. Yes, so after you've collected your data, you analyze collaboratively your data and agree on what is working. What do you drop out of the schedule? What do you drop out of the what do you make? What changes are you making to the scope? What is the impact on the costs? We're going to be looking at cost management in the next lecture. So once you've done that and you have agreed and you've made changes, we'll be looking at change management later on in detail, the approval processes and all that. Then you apply your learning from the data, or you can also even share. For those of you working in the NGO sector, nowadays donors are moving on to looking at abstracts and technical briefs to fund, and it is an easier way to get to acquire resources, grants, than proposal writing, which is so competitive. So so that is how adaptive implementation really works. Thanks very much. That brings us to the end of our lecture today. I'll be taking on any questions or comments from you. I'll stop sharing for now. And thanks.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Koloba. First of all, before I ask any question, I want to commend you on your wonderful presentation. Done a very good presentation. And next thing, I will have to ask you a question on this adaptive management. As you had highlighted yes, you may have good case, but it may not work, or you may go wrong. You may not get it right. The question I was to ask was about intervention. That is very good. You have brought it out very well. Now, mine is that my concern is that, do we have an aspect of artificial intelligence in this? Can you apply artificial intelligence in this, apart from those interventions you have mentioned? Thank you.
Thanks very much for that good, wonderful question. I would say yes. Artificial intelligence does work. For example, if you're working on a project and that project is, say, addressing, let's say, addressing social internet bullying on these social networks, and artificial intelligence can really support you on that if you're using crawlers or the web to identify those different I would say methods that the people that are bullying are using to target their respondents or their victims. The other thing still with artificial intelligence is that it can support us on data analysis and generating insights. Especially, I've tried using it for qualitative data, and it does provide you with the things from the qualitative data. That way, you are able to easily identify the different themes and then apply to in your adaptive implementation process. Remember, we said that it's about collecting data and analyzing it, and then having those collaborative meetings for you to be able to agree on what is working and what isn't working, what you need to improve, what you don't need to improve. Then artificial intelligence can also be used to predict for prediction, as you know, for those that are involved in a predictive analysis. And we said adaptive implementation is all about using the information to be able to gauge if your assumptions are working or not, and then also making necessary changes. So once you are able to predict, and artificial intelligence is really good at that, the algorithms are really good at predictions, then you are able to change that, make the necessary changes based on the predictions from artificial intelligence. It can also support you on decisions, like I said, with qualitative data, where it does generate the themes, and then you are able to use those to come up with better interventions. So basically, that is it. I know artificial intelligence. I've really attended some. I'm not an IT person, but I've attended some lectures by Data Management University, and basically artificial intelligence. I think to me, I believe that that is what it can do.
Awesome, thank you. I think you've answered well, because
Okay.
we are in what we call VUCA world, and those things that you have mentioned, actually, they all lie in the VUCA world. That's volatile, uncertain, changing, and ambiguous world that we are in. Because today we are here today, we never can tell of tomorrow. Tomorrow something happens like COVID did, and then everything is upset. So thank you very much, Mr. Koloba.
Maybe to add, it can also be used for risk management.
Yeah,
Adaptive
sure.
It enables it's easily it can easily identify these risks and make recommendations on real time data. All right. Any other question for me? Any question, members? I can see something in the chat. Okay. Sylvia is reminding us to fill out the attendance form. Members, I'll be sending out a test. It should take us around 10 or 15 minutes during the course of the week before we move on to the next learning area, which will be cost management. Yes, Martin?
I was trying to unmute so that I can ask my question. I was looking at the PERT vis-a-vis the CPM, critical path method, and the PERT, the advantages and the disadvantages of the same. That is one. And then the second element I was looking at is it's good when we apply the critical path method because the tasks are well known and very clearly indicated. But sometimes as project managers, we come across elements that become a critical path in the middle of the project. So I don't know what we are supposed to do when we get to such extent when an element or a task comes up between the project within the timelines, and that task now becomes a critical path. Thank you.
Sorry, James, your network was breaking, but hopefully you can, it seems you're traveling, hopefully you can type your question in or comment in the chat, and we'll be able to respond or read it out to the rest of the members. Any other question or comment? Members, I was saying that I'll be sending out a test for us to gauge what we've learned so far, and it will cover areas to do with the introductory bit that our doctor handled. It will look at integration management. It will also look at scope and schedule management. That will be during the course of the week. I don't know if members, is there any other question or comment? Hello? Yes, James, I can see your hand is up.
No, I think it is a second one. I clicked on it accidentally, but my questions were that the first two.
Okay. If there are no questions or comments, I welcome Diana to close this off.
Okay, so thank you so much, Guloba Ronald, for that insightful session. I'm hoping we're not leaving anyone behind in terms of asking questions. Kindly remember that there's an attendance form that maybe needs your attention. You need to fill the attendance register for today. So if you haven't filled the form, kindly please, it is in the chat section. Just fill the form as we conclude. So I'm not sure if James is able to articulate his question on the chat section, or maybe you can get a place where there's good network. I'm sure you haven't gotten any response. So James, I hope you had the trainer. He's asking if you can write your question on the chat or articulate it or say it.
Yeah, I'm driving and I'm not able to type. I don't know how I'll send my question in.
James, I'll remember and I'll handle your question. I'll handle your question during the next session. It will be the first thing that we'll go do. But I still will have a recap, and of course, members, the tester will also be able to stimulate our members to be able to participate and recap for us. Thanks a lot, and have a wonderful weekend.
Okay.
Thank you and very much welcome.
All right. Thank you, members, for joining this session. Once you're done with the attendance register, you're free to leave at your own time. See you in the next training on Friday.
Thank you.
Remember to fill the attendance register before you leave. Let us know what you think about the session, what can be improved, so that the trainings can be accommodating to all the members. So remember to fill the form. It will take less than a minute. So yeah, before you leave, remember to fill the attendance register. What am I supposed to do? Goodness.